All right, this is it. Last week I published my unboxing and initial impressions video of the new Pixel 6. But now it's time for the full breakdown, the full review. Remember, I'm an Apple fanboy. I have been for years. I've always owned iPhones. Never Android, never a Pixel. But I decided to give the Pixel 6 a real shot. So let's dig in. You may have seen my unboxing video, but if you haven't, you're welcome to check it out. There's a link up top here, but also one in the description. If you don't want to do that, I'll save you some time by saying I was generally impressed with the phone during my first few hours. I liked the always-on display, which isn't new to the Pixel, but still a great feature. I liked the in-display fingerprint reader as well, and the display overall looks great. And the Android 12 experience seems fairly well done, especially the Material You interface. However, for the full review, I wanted to focus on what I think are the key areas that matter most. First off, the processor and the speed of the phone overall. This is especially important because Google has its own designed system on a chip called Google Tensor this year. So I wanted to see what that did for the phone's performance. Next is battery life. Google claims that the Pixel 6 can run beyond 24 hours on a single charge. It's a bold claim, and so I wanted to get a sense of whether that was true. I decided to test connectivity as well, which is the speed over the cellular network. The fingerprint reader and unlocking was also on my list of things to test because that's been a bit of a hot button topic online about the reliability of the Pixel in this area. Then comes the camera system, which is one of the most important aspects of a smartphone these days. And finally, I want to share some of my thoughts about Android 12, the operating system on the Pixel. Let's start with the phone's performance, speed, whatever you want to call it. How fast is it and how fast does it feel? I did some research on Google's new Tensor chip. This, of course, is Google's first custom-designed smartphone chip. They decided to take a page out of Apple's book and design their own silicon in the hopes that a more integrated hardware stack would yield better results. Google's primary focus isn't actually speed, but actually machine learning and AI. See, they built a tensor processing unit, essentially an ML optimized processor that can assist with specialized tasks that ordinary chips would have a tough time with. Google actually rolled out some special features just to show off the capabilities of their new chip. Things like their new live translation feature, which allows users to translate languages instantly right in their chat apps, as well as photography tools like motion mode to stitch together long exposures and face unblur for when you capture subjects in motion. But having access to neat little features is one thing, but the phone also needs to feel fast on a day-to-day basis. Tom's Guide did a nice comparison of processor performance based on Geekbench 5 scores, which is a widely accepted benchmarking test that puts the hardware through its paces to see how well it performs. There's two kinds of scores, single core and multi-core. The Pixel 6 scored at 1029 compared to the Galaxy S21 Ultra at 1123, and the iPhone 13 at 1668. On multi-core, the Pixel scored 2696 versus the S21 at 3440 and the iPhone 13 at 4436. So long story short, if you compare the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro to flagships from Samsung and Apple, it's not as fast. It's also clear that nobody comes close to Apple's performance on their A15 Bionic, at least not yet. But here's where the rubber meets the road. If you're considering upgrading your phone, you likely have a phone that's a couple of years old. Well, I'm in that boat too. What matters to me is that I can see significant performance gains compared to my old phone. So I put the two phones side by side and I did an app launch comparison, which in my opinion is one of the most real-world tests that you can do. Don't ask me why I picked these particular apps to test. I just picked at random. I opened apps like Apple Music, Twitter, Sportsnet, Nest, YouTube, and Starbucks. And in every situation, the app opened and finished loading 2 to 3 seconds faster on the Pixel. Yeah, this is to be expected. The Pixel is 3 years newer, but it's certainly a concrete reminder of why upgrading makes such a huge difference. Nobody wants to be awkwardly getting the stare down from your local barista while you anxiously wait for your Starbucks card to load, only to realize that you actually need to reload your card. Oops. When it comes to just general usage though, the Pixel 6 doesn't feel slow at all. In fact, it feels fast and zippy. I even downloaded a couple of games, not that I'm a mobile gamer, but still, the games loaded quickly and responded instantly, every time with no lag. What more can you ask for? Ultimately, I don't think one would really notice a speed difference between the Pixel and the S21 Ultra. It mostly comes down to being future-proofed. Most consumers keep their phones for 2 to 3 years. Will the Pixel still feel fast at that point, or will it be starting to show its age? Only time will tell. Google says on their site that the Pixel 6 should get over 24 hours of use. The battery pack itself is 4,614 milliamp hours. That's about 10% less than the Pixel 6 Pro, which is a larger phone overall. I'll be totally honest, I haven't done the most scientific study here, but I think it reflects what people will experience every day. My use case for a phone is quite different from others though. For example, I work from home, and so I spend a lot of my time on my home Wi-Fi network, and I tend to use other devices like my computer, my iPad, TVs, which reduces the overall use of the phone. There were a couple of particular days though, in which I think I pushed the phone a decent amount. One day I spent a lot of time outside the house, testing the camera, using maps, social networks, and so on, and I had about 4 hours of screen time. At the end of the day, I had about 35% battery remaining. I've been using the Pixel every time I leave the house, and although I am not the biggest power user by any means, I haven't actually ever gotten a low power warning, at least not yet, which is a pretty great sign. I feel like Google has put a lot of work into the software here as well to help with battery efficiency, and I certainly feel confident leaving the house for hours on end with no charger, even if I don't have a full charge to start with. Right off the bat here, I'll just mention that I can't actually test 5G because my network hasn't rolled that out yet. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you will know that I'm on Shaw Mobile, which is a discount affordable carrier here. And that means that I don't always get perks like having access to 5G. They do say it's coming, but we don't have it yet. The Pixel does have 5G capabilities though, just like most flagship phones these days. However, just for fun, I did a quick comparison between the Pixel 6, the iPhone XR that I had previously, and the iPhone 13 mini, which is my wife's. At home, I get about 3 bars of service, and that's where I tested them. They were all tested in the same spot. I also did 2 tests each time using the same test server. The Pixel 6 got download speeds of 39 megabits and 41 megabits per second, respectively, which easily beat my iPhone XR, which only mustered 26 and 28 megabits per second. However, the iPhone 13 mini clocked in at 42 and 46 megabits per second. That means that the Pixel and the iPhone 13 are pretty close. However, for some reason the Pixel destroyed both the iPhones when it comes to the upload speed. The Pixel clocked 15 and 20 megabits per second upload, while the iPhone 13 was far behind at about 8 megabits per second in both tests. In my day-to-day usage on the Pixel, it's been plenty fast and reliable when it comes to the mobile internet connection, and I think you'll see solid performance overall. Now we have to talk about the Pixel's fingerprint sensor because there's actually been a bit of controversy, especially on tech Twitter. I've been seeing lots of reports of people saying it's unreliable and it doesn't work a lot of the time. And I was initially excited about going to a fingerprint reader because Face ID can be a bit annoying sometimes on my iPhone. But actually, I have noticed some issues with the Pixel's fingerprint reader. And I think it's likely less reliable than competing products in this area. I posted a video to Twitter showing me repeatedly attempting to unlock the display about 10 times in a row, and it did fail one of those times. When you put it that way, it doesn't seem too bad, right? A 90% success rate is a pretty good mark to give. But the problem is the average person unlocks their phones at least 60 to 70 times per day. That means you may experience an error with the fingerprint reader 6 to 7 times throughout the day. That means it's within the range where it becomes extremely annoying and noticeable. Now, in my video, after the initial failure, it worked on my next attempt. That actually hasn't been the case for me in real life though. I've had a few moments where for some reason it fails multiple times in a row and the issue doesn't correct itself until I just put my passcode in to unlock it. That's a little bit hard to replicate and capture on camera, but it is a real issue. Google has essentially recognized that there's an issue with the fingerprint scanner, but it didn't provide any solution or even any hope of a future software update. They're basically stating that the reader is sometimes slow or unreliable due to security reasons. In their words, the Pixel 6 fingerprint sensor utilizes enhanced security algorithms. In some instances, these added protections can take longer to verify or require more direct contact with the sensors. My take on this is that it's not bad enough to be a deal breaker, but it's not great. Okay, now it's time to talk about the camera system and photography on the Pixel 6. The Pixel has a 50 megapixel wide camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and an 8 megapixel front facing camera. Google says this year's model has bigger sensors to help you capture more color, more detail, and 150% more light than the Pixel 5. I'll start by saying that I'm no camera or photography expert. I'm really your definition of an average smartphone photographer. I want to capture great pictures by simply taking out my phone and turning on the camera. I want to be able to capture life as it happens, pictures of my friends and family, and just the cool stuff that I see. So there's a few topics to discuss when it comes to the Pixel's camera system. First of all, shooting in well-lit situations with the wide and ultra wide lenses, then shooting in low light, and the different shooting modes like portrait mode and motion mode. And then we have to talk about a feature called Magic Eraser. To test shooting during the day, I went along to a local park with the family and I captured some of the scenery. It was a beautiful day in late fall and I really liked the image quality that I was able to achieve with the Pixel 6. You can tell the Pixel is using all the light that it's bringing in effectively and creating some visually pleasing images. I did a few comparison shots between the Pixel 6 and my old iPhone XR. I'll share a few examples here. Take this purple park bench for starters. Both images look good in my opinion and it's actually pretty similar, but I am seeing a bit more detail in the iPhone image, especially in the trees in the background. As for this picture of the play structure, I can't really determine a favorite. I'm seeing similar levels of contrast and detail, and in both cases the color seems to be true to life. And another bench here that I snapped. In this case, the iPhone image seems a bit brighter and again a bit more background detail. And one more play structure here. In this case, I think the sky looks a little bit better on the Pixel with a bit more contrast. But again, the foreground seems to be a bit brighter on the iPhone with similar levels of detail between the two. To me, the Pixel here is taking some great photos. I put my iPhone away for the rest of the walk and we captured some public art, a giant colorful structure, and I'm very impressed with the photos the Pixel took here. Although I'm partial to the pictures the iPhone took overall, I'm getting a little bit nitpicky and some folks may have a different taste. It's obviously quite subjective. Next up, to capture some low light photos, I went out on the town with my wife and we experimented a bit with a few different shots. The Pixel automatically activates its night sight mode when you're in low light. And I must say it does a great job. This restaurant is a lot dimmer than it looks here. And it's a great quality photo as well. Here's a portrait mode shot, then another one of me saying cheers, and then another portrait mode shot of myself. Here's a comparison between the iPhone 13 mini, which is my wife's phone, and my Pixel 6. I know the light in the background is different between the two shots. Both these photos are portrait mode shots. And believe me when I say the bar we're at here is super dark. So pretty incredible how much light we're able to capture here. Personally, I see a similar level of detail in the subject between the two phones. Again, I can't pick a favorite. I also snapped a few photos of the interesting cocktails that we were trying, all taken on the Pixel 6. Altogether, I'm very impressed with the low light photography on the Pixel. My only slight complaint is that it takes a little bit longer to capture the image in low light on the Pixel. I'm having to hold the Pixel steady for about 3 to 5 seconds while it runs some kind of image processing algorithm. And I'm not totally sure how the Pixel's night sight works, but perhaps it's capturing multiple frames in order to put them all together. I'm not sure why it takes so much longer. The iPhone takes perhaps 1 full second at most, and so the difference is pretty substantial. As you've seen already, I had the chance to try out portrait mode as well. In these two shots, I already shared that they both look great to me. But in these two photos of me, I feel like the Pixel is doing a better job of true to life lighting, especially when it comes to my complexion. For what I've seen online in terms of portrait mode, the iPhone tends to have slightly better edge detection so you don't end up with too much blurriness in your subject. However, the Pixel tends to do a better job at capturing more detail. Another mode the Pixel has is called motion mode. There's two ways of using this mode. You can either select action pan or long exposure. With an action pan, you can essentially take a subject that is either moving or against a background that's moving and add a creative blur to the background to make the photo feel more exhilarating. Long exposure adds a creative blur to the foreground or the subject of your photo. I was able to capture an action pan photo as we were about to board the train. As it was pulling into the station, I snapped a quick photo. As you can see here, the subject is in perfect focus, but the background motion now looks a little bit like a long exposure. Honestly, it's a pretty cool look. The last interesting photography feature I'll mention is called Magic Eraser, and it's actually an editing feature. With Magic Eraser, you can remove people from the background of your pictures. Powered by Google's Tensor chip, the phone will actually make recommendations for you, and you can simply tap to continue or highlight the specific person you want to remove from the photo. I'll be the first to say that it's not perfect, and if you're looking closely at the edited image, you can tell something weird is going on. However, I think much of the time it does a good enough job that if you were to simply just show the photo to someone, they probably wouldn't notice that the image had been edited, unless they were closely examining the background. This isn't a feature that's going to yield great results for print quality photos, but if you're just gonna share a photo on Instagram and remove any potential photo bombers, I think you're gonna appreciate this capability. I don't think I could fully finish the review without making a few notes about the software. I have some likes and some dislikes. As an iPhone user trying to get used to the Android experience, I felt pleasantly confident in learning the OS by just simply using it. There's no need to read a manual or anything. The OS is generally intuitive and friendly, and I'm a big fan of Material You. This is a brand new feature which gives you the ability to customize the color and style of your widgets and app icons based on the colors in your wallpaper. Once you pick a wallpaper, the phone will provide you with color palette options that are based on that background. I love this a lot, and it makes for a really clean look when you open up your phone. It doesn't work for third-party apps at this point, but my understanding is that developers will be able to get involved in this trend as well. Another cool thing is that you can set the wallpaper to change to something new every day. This keeps things fresh, and I love the surprise of something new every morning. As someone who has also had Google Home devices for a couple of years now, I appreciate having home control right in the OS from the quick settings panel. Lastly, I like the always-on display. I know that's not new to the Pixel, but it's an upgrade for me. It allows me to glance at the time or weather by simply looking at my phone. I don't have to pick it up, I don't have to unlock it and potentially get caught up in other things that are on my phone. It's very convenient. All right, now I will mention a few things that I'm not in love with. They're small things, but they're still there. First off, I noticed almost immediately that Android doesn't have a gesture to get to the top of a list, web page, or feed the way that iOS does. In iOS, if I'm at the bottom of a web page, I can quickly get to the top just by tapping the top of my display. I use this so much that I must have taken it for granted, and it's just pure muscle memory. I've mistakenly tried to do this gesture 100 times on my Pixel. I'm a big Twitter user, for example, and I'm honestly really sad that I have to manually scroll to the top of my feed every time instead of just a one-tap gesture. I honestly thought Android would have a feature like this, but I haven't found an answer yet. Now to notifications. Most people tend to agree that Android notifications are generally done better than on iOS, but I have to disagree on one point. When I'm using the Pixel and a notification comes in, I really don't get any good visual reference for what just happened. The phone just vibrates and it doesn't explain why. Compare that to iOS where you get a drop-down notification of what's happening. That just doesn't happen on the Pixel. Maybe there's a setting to turn that on, I'm not sure. I can see on the top status bar that app icons do get displayed to tell you what apps have recently sent you push notifications. So to some degree, you can get a clue as to what's going on, but if you want to get more details, you need to swipe down down to go to your notification center. I know a lot of people don't like the drop-down banners on the iPhone, but I've grown attached to them and I find it very strange to not have that on Android. Lastly, on Android, you have a back gesture, which isn't a thing at all on the iPhone. Android has typically had a back button in the past, but that's gone away and you now use a back gesture. It's quite simple. Swipe from right to left on the right edge of your screen, and you'll be taken one step back from your most recent input on your phone. So if you just opened up an app, you can go back to the home screen by using the back gesture. There's plenty of practical uses for the back gesture, and I totally love it. That said, I use this gesture by accident all the time, many times a day. You know how if you're looking at a series of photos, you would swipe from right to left to go to the next photo? Well, most of the time when I try to do that, I end up telling the phone to go back instead. And as you can imagine, that catches me by surprise and I get a little frustrated. Now imagine that happening about 20 times a day. Maybe I just have fat fingers, but I can't be the only one that this happens to. Well, that's it. That is my review of the Pixel 6. And I'm about to tell you my real opinion of the phone, as well as if I, as an iPhone user, will be completely switching. But before I do, I want to mention a couple things. First, I recognize that you may not agree with everything I've said in this video, or perhaps you're thinking that I'm mistaken, or I missed something that's painfully obvious that would have changed my opinion. And that is all fair and true. So here's the deal. If you think I'm wrong about anything or missed anything, please let me know in the comments. I'm always open to hearing your thoughts and I want to have that discussion with you. Let's hear what you have to say. Secondly, if you've made it this far, my only ask is that you click that like button. It gets the YouTube algorithm to notice this video and recommend it to other folks like yourself who are searching for Pixel 6 reviews. And if you're interested in seeing more of my future videos, you can also click that subscribe button so YouTube recommends my videos to you going forward. All right, now I mentioned I would provide my opinion. Here's the bottom line. At $799 outright, the Pixel is incredible value. Possibly the absolute best value for money across all the flagships. Is it the best phone? No, but it's just as good or very close in most areas, especially when compared to the latest iPhones. Am I going to switch and make the Pixel 6 my everyday phone? No. Why? Well, it has very little to do with the phone. Sure, there's a few annoyances that I mentioned about the software and the fingerprint sensor, but that's not the deal breaker. The deal breaker is the fact that I am completely trapped in the Apple ecosystem. I've got a Mac, an iPad, Apple Watch, and AirPods. All of this stuff is designed to work harmoniously together with an iPhone. Tossing an Android phone into the mix is like tossing a grenade into my daily workflow. I'd have to switch to an Android Wear smartwatch or a Fitbit, and that costs money. I wouldn't have iMessage anymore, which means that I wouldn't be in iMessage threads with my friends and family, and I wouldn't be able to answer texts on my computer. I use AirDrop all the time to transfer video files and other files between my phone, my computer, and my iPad. And that wouldn't be an option anymore either. Then there's the Find My Phone app, which wouldn't work the same way anymore. I know Google has an alternative, but I also use AirTags, which are Apple's Bluetooth trackers. And right now you can't find AirTags with an Android phone. That's just a few reasons why it doesn't make sense to switch to the Pixel, and really none of it has anything to do with the Pixel. Now, if you're an Android fan, you might be thinking about how ridiculous it is that Apple's ecosystem is so locked down that it makes it almost impossible for people to switch away. And you'd be right. I agree with you. But here's the thing about Apple's ecosystem. It's pretty darn good, and it creates a user experience that people like. And ultimately, it keeps people in the ecosystem, which is exactly what Apple wants. So I won't be using the Pixel 6 as my daily phone, but I am enjoying it immensely. And I think people who buy it will really enjoy it and be very happy with their purchase, especially if Google can push out a software fix for the buggy fingerprint reader. I'm planning on doing one more video on the Pixel 6, and that's to get out and do a more in-depth photography breakdown. The Pixel 6 has a very impressive camera system, and I want to push that a little bit and see if I can get some stellar photos. I'm heading out on a quick mountain trip soon, and I want to see how the Pixel does when it comes to landscape photography, and I plan on doing more tests of the different shooting modes like portrait mode, low light, motion mode, and more. So stay tuned and subscribe if you want to see that video as well. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.